Hello, and welcome to my animatics for my new film Cine, or 影视. Today I will be going over the storyboards. I also want to note that the format of these animatics are going to be different than the last one because there are way more shots that I need to cover this time. But before that, I'll talk a little bit about my film itself. It is a horror-esque film inspired by early Chinese filmmaking, especially by the filmmaker Wong Kar-wai. It is also inspired by the movies Goodbye Dragon Inn and more recently Everything Everywhere All at Once. The main themes and motifs I'll be playing with are elevators and the matrix inception of what it really means to be an audience. So without further ado, I will introduce the storyboard. As you can see, I'm going to be highlighting each shot that I'm going to be talking about with a green box as we move along. So, first shot, first scene. We're opening with a shot of a Chinatown theater at night, and then we move inside to the interior and get a montage starting from behind our main character Justin, who is watching the famous film Fallen Angels by Wong Kar-wai on the big screen. This shot is going to be shot in the Dan Christum Memorial Theater. Next, we move to a close-up of Justin's cheek, where I want to get his expression where he's looking at the screen and he's completely absorbed in the film, and the movie that he's watching is flashing on his cheek. Then we move to the next shot where he's outside and he's walking around through the dimly lit streets of Chinatown. I'm going to work a lot with motion blur, and everything's going to be covered in this green glow. I haven't really decided exactly what these shots are going to be. Probably just going to wing it once I get in the atmosphere that is Chinatown at night. Our final shot of that sequence is just going to be Justin walking away from the camera. The camera is tilted at an angle before we move to our next scene. So the next scene is at an objective point of view. We are looking at Justin from inside the elevator as the doors open, and then he walks in. The next shot is from an outside angle as he walks into the elevator. Then we move to the next shot where it's kind of like a zoomed out, establishing wide shot as the doors almost close. I want to get that beautiful Shanghai roof on this elevator, and every chapter of this Wong Kar-wai sequence is going to be divided by this large interrupting text similar to the ones in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and this one just says The Elevator, Chapter 1. Then next we moved inside the elevator where the anonymous hand just stops the doors from closing. Then we move out to the two-shot and see this unknown passenger with an obscured face enters. Then we move to an over-the-shoulder where Justin turns to look at the passenger. Then we get a close-up on Justin's eyes, and then the unknown passenger says this cryptic line from Fallen Angels. Then we pan down to the unknown passenger and see that he has a knife in his hand as he finishes speaking. Then we move to the two-shot where they finally meet gazes. Now to the next scene, we see Justin continuing to walk through Chinatown at night. This next shot isn't labeled, but I'll put an example up here of what I want this shot to be like. I love this shot so much, so I want to recreate it. And then next, we get an over the shoulder of this girl, and then they walk past each other, and then they run into each other, and this is Deodora. So before I move on to the next scene, I wanted to talk a little bit about Deodora's character and her role. At first I wasn't really sure what to do with her, but now I have kind of this vision of her linking this more to a Wong Kar-wai inspired film, because his films are often deeply emotional and have a lot of morals, and so I need to have that emotional component that is her being in touch with reality. So this next shot is going to just be a montage of the two becoming lovers, and it just flashes quickly on the screen very fast, and the purpose of that is to just show what it would be if they were lovers. They aren't currently. And so we move to the next scene, Deodora, chapter 2. So Deodora and Justin sit across from each other at a dim sum restaurant. I have this exact location in my location shots that I will display later. And then next is I will put up the shot that I'm going to reference up here. Deodora's face is zoomed in while the background is still present. It's not a fisheye lens, but it's something similar to that. And she introduces herself. Then we move to Justin's shot, and he introduces himself. Then Deodora kicks her legs up on the table in that kind of swag manner and twiddling with her toothpick in her mouth. And then these two shots alternate in the conversation, the dialogue. Then we get a close-up on Deodora's mouth as she says one of my favorite lines of the script, that is, "Do you ever think we will fall in love if our lives are all bullshit?" And then this we get in text on the screen on a rather quiet shot that holds for a couple beats. It's a two-shot of them from outside the dim sum restaurant, and then that starts off the next scene. Justin looks down in a close-up and a warm match light lights up his face. Then we move to a wide shot where he's alone in an alleyway, deep in thought about what Deodora said. And a cigarette in his hand makes wisps in the air. I wasn't sure whether or not to include the cigarette or not, but I chose to because you really cannot have a Wong Kar-wai film without the cigarettes in that time era. And so in the shot, he looks up, then that match cuts to him looking up in a train station, and the train passes and then wind blows on his face. That starts off the next chapter, the train. Then we move to behind Justin as the train comes to a stop in front of him, and then he enters. This starts off the one take, the one shot of this entire sequence. So we follow from behind him into the train, then he turns to his right and sees the elevator passenger from before standing at the other end of a train with the knife. Then we circle back around to Justin's expression. This is still the same shot. And then from behind, the passenger springs up, jump scares us, and tries to strangle him. Then the shot still continues. He drags him and chokes him, and then this sets off in a fierce fight as the train continuously moves. Justin punches the passenger, and then he falls on the ground, and there's a knife laying next to him, and then Justin, with his feet in the background, walks up to it, picks up the knife, and as he picks up the knife, the passenger springs up, tries to grab him or something, and then we get a quick close-up of Justin plunging the knife into the passenger, and then the medium shot where it shows the action. Then we move to an even wider shot of the two at the other end of the train, and then all of a sudden they're obscured by the tunnel. Everything goes black, and then we hear a ding from the elevator, and then this is kind of a match cut. Then the doors of the elevator open. Justin is there covered in blood, and then he steps out. We move to the wide shot, then he exits the elevator. He slowly walks out covered in blood. I like to have this shot last a couple beats for the impact before we move on to the final scene, which isn't really a final scene, just a continuation from the first scene that was bisected by this Wong Kar-wai sequence. So we get a reoccurring shot from the first scene of Justin's cheek being flashed by the lights on a screen. Then we move up to a close-up of his bandaged hand reaching down for popcorn. We assume that this is after the elevator incident, get thrown off a little bit. Then we move back, similar to the first scene where he's watching the movie on the big screen. But we begin to recognize characters and scenes that played out from before, and we begin to realize that something's off. Then we move on to a shot of Justin's expression. I'll try to figure out how to get a Zolly here, but I'm probably just going to be zooming into his confused face as he stares ominously at the screen. Then I plan to cut it off there and start the reveal as the scene of Justin slowly zooms out slowly zooms back to reveal an audience is watching him on a movie screen as he panics. Then the famous "The End" title appears on Justin's screen, and the audience chuckles and claps. And then credits roll on our screen. So that is it for the storyboards and the scripts. I'll talk briefly about the cinematography aspects and the mechanics of how I want this film to look and feel. Again, this is heavily inspired by the works of old Chinese filmmaking, especially by Wong Kar-wai and the cinematographer Christopher Doyle. I want to capture that dreamy motion blur feel and that glow, but I'm probably going to get that a lot in post-production because I don't have that camera. So here's some of the shots I took down in Chinatown at night while I went location scouting. I have the elevator with the red roof, and I have the dim sum restaurant that I was talking about at the bottom right corner, some alleyways, and yeah, those are the locations. I do not have the train yet. I will get that figured out soon. And to the right of this image is my quite messy Pinterest board of shots from Wong Kar-wai movies, Fallen Angels, 2046, Chungking Express, In the Mood for Love, and Happy Together. And that is basically it for my animatics video. I didn't talk too much about Deodora's voiceover, which is a very important part of this script, but I'll have that a lot more fleshed out once I get the translations done. And yeah, that is it. Thank you for watching.